still remember the day I found myself standing in my own living room, surrounded by boxes I had carefully packed. My hands trembled as I taped the final cardboard shut, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. At 78 years old, I believed that moving into a nursing home would grant me security and round-the-clock care, while also freeing my children from any sense of obligation. A part of me felt I was doing the right thing. After all, no one wants to be a burden to those they love. Yet beneath that practicality, a quiet voice kept whispering, "Is this really where your story should continue?" Now, years down the road, I realize I wasn't just leaving behind my house, I was leaving behind a life I cherished. If you're wrestling with a similar decision for yourself or a loved one, I invite you to hear my story. Think of it not as a cautionary tale meant to frighten you, but as a heart-to-heart chat with someone who's walked the path you may be about to take. Growing older in the United States comes with its own unique blend of blessings and challenges. We carry memories of big family gatherings, weekend barbecues, or road trips that capture the American spirit of adventure. But the golden years also bring questions about healthcare costs, daily support, and whether living alone at home is truly safe. If you've clicked on this video or stumbled upon this script, chances are these questions have crossed your mind more than once. We all want assurance, some guarantee that the final chapter of our life will be filled with care, dignity, and maybe a bit of fun. And while nursing homes can offer a level of structure, safety, and social opportunities, I've learned the hard way that they also present certain harsh realities we rarely discuss. Some of these realities have kept me awake at night, replaying memories of how things might have turned out differently. Today, I want to share 6 regrets. 6 lessons I wish I'd known when I first stepped into that facility. If anything resonates with your own worries or experiences, please type a specific number in the comments so we can connect. And if by chance you find hope or clarity here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and look out for future videos where I'll explore more ways to navigate life's later stages. Let's journey through these lessons together with honesty and empathy. I'm not here to tell you exactly what to do, but I can show you what I've learned so you can make better informed decisions for yourself or someone you love. 1. Surrendering your everyday independence. When I first moved into the nursing home, I imagined I'd have a hassle-free lifestyle. No leaky faucets to fix, no grocery runs in bad weather, and medical assistance ready if I ever needed it. In theory, it sounded fantastic. But the day I arrived, I noticed a subtle shift in my sense of control over my own life. Nearly everything, from meal times to bathing schedules, was set in stone. I'd always treasured the little freedoms, waking up naturally without an alarm, enjoying an unplanned walk in my garden, or simply deciding to skip lunch if I wasn't hungry. In the nursing home, these choices were often overshadowed by the facility's routine. At first, it seemed like a minor trade-off. After all, structure helps staff care for multiple residents efficiently. But as days turned into weeks, that loss of autonomy gnawed at me. Did I really need someone telling me when to turn off the lights at night, or which day was designated for laundry? The problem runs deeper than mere inconvenience. Over time, surrendering these little freedoms erodes your confidence in making your own decision. You start second-guessing yourself. Maybe the staff knows best? Maybe I'm too old to handle my own schedule? With that doubt comes a quiet resentment. You see, no matter how kindly a facility tries to implement rules, it's frustrating to have daily life orchestrated by people half your age who may not fully understand your preferences. My own bitterness crept in slowly. I'd find myself irritated over trivial details, like wanting to water a small plant in my room at a specific hour, only to be told the caretaker would handle it later. I realized then that independence isn't just about big life choices. It's about the countless small decisions that reflect who we are. If the idea of handing over these day-to-day decisions makes you uneasy, please comment with the number 1 below. It's important to acknowledge these worries head-on before they consume us. The consequence of ignoring this reality is the gradual loss of agency. When you stop having a say in your routines, you risk feeling invisible, like your personal voice no longer matters. Here's my warning. Don't dismiss how meaningful these little freedoms can be. If you're considering a nursing home, ask about flexibility and schedules. Will they accommodate a late sleeper? Are meal preferences respected? If the answers are ambiguous, consider it a red flag. Remember, too, that sometimes compromise is necessary. A facility might not bend all its rules, but pushing for some semblance of autonomy can preserve your sense of self. So speak up, state your needs. If family members are making decisions on your behalf, let them know that you still want a hand in shaping your everyday life. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing, is a phrase older Americans sometimes quote to remind ourselves that life's small joys keep us mentally young. That sense of play can come in many forms, like deciding whether to spend an afternoon writing letters or napping under a window's sunlight. Don't let a strict schedule take that away from you. Now, let's explore the second harsh reality, which can be just as heart-wrenching. 2. The emotional vibrator of loneliness. Picture this. It's a crisp fall afternoon in Wisconsin, or maybe it's a mild sunny day in California. You're sitting by a window, watching people outside bustling around, leaves swirling, the sun setting earlier than you remembered it used to. You think about your children, your grandchildren, or old friends scattered across different cities, states, or even countries. At first, you might feel a twinge of nostalgia, but as the hours pass and no one walks through that door to say hello, that twinge becomes a pang, and before you know it, you're steeped in loneliness. This loneliness isn't just physical. Yes, it's true your loved ones can't visit as often as you'd like, everyone's busy, schedules clash, life goes on. But there's also an emotional component. Inside a nursing home, you're surrounded by other residents, nurses, and aides, yet you can feel more isolated than ever. Everyone has their own roles, tasks, or personal struggles. An extended one-on-one connection can be scarce. Sure, there may be a group bingo night or a sing-along session, but those structured events rarely fill the deeper void of missing a genuine conversation with someone who understands you, your history, and your quirky sense of humor. The problem here is that loneliness can morph into a sort of emotional starvation. Humans are social creatures, no matter our age. When you realize no one is stopping by to hear about the dream you had last night or the funny memory from your 50th wedding anniversary, you start to feel disposable, like your stories are lost in the wind. I spent many evenings gazing out at the facility's parking lot, imagining how it felt to be in a busy world again. My kids called, sure, but phone calls often felt rushed, overshadowed by their daily responsibilities. Friends back home grew distant, either due to their own health or simply the complications of traveling long distances. If you've ever dreaded the thought of being alone in your later years, comment too below. Acknowledging this fear might be the first step toward preventing it from becoming a reality. The consequence of unchecked loneliness is a decline not just in mental well-being, but physical health too. I've witnessed residents who, after months of feeling forgotten, stopped participating in group meals or activities altogether. They retreated further into isolation, and it showed in their posture, their tone of voice, and eventually in their medical charts. Here's my warning for you. Never underestimate the power of consistent communication with family and friends. Encourage loved ones to set up a fixed schedule for calls or visits, even short ones. If you have a grandchild, get them involved in sending postcards or voice notes. Sometimes a 4-minute chat about their soccer practice or a texted photo of a birthday party can dissolve days of gloom. If you're a family member tuning in, try not to say, "I'll visit soon," without committing to a specific date and time. That vague promise can hurt more than help when it never materializes. Put it on a calendar. Follow through. Loneliness is a silent adversary, and your presence, physical or virtual, can mean everything to someone feeling forgotten. 3. Uneven standards of care. When my children and I toured the nursing home, we were greeted by polite staff, shining floors, and a director who seemed genuinely invested in resident care. The brochures painted a picture of a warm, nurturing environment, happy faces in the dining hall, nurses chatting amiably with seniors, well-maintained garden paths for afternoon strolls. But what you see on these tours or in promotional materials isn't always the day-to-day reality. As time passed, I discovered that while some caregivers were angels, kind, observant, always ready to help, others seemed disinterested, impatient, or simply exhausted. Staff turnover was high. One nurse told me she'd barely managed to sleep 4 hours a night because she had a second job just to pay her bills. It's hard to blame individuals for feeling burnt out, but that burnout inevitably affects the quality of care. A minor oversight like forgetting to check your blood pressure at the right time or mixing up meal trays can have serious consequences, particularly for those with chronic conditions. The problem intensifies when you realize each staff member has a different personal approach. On a good day, you might have someone who patiently answers all your questions about medication side effects. On a bad day, you could be left waiting in discomfort, pressing the call button, wondering if anyone will come. This inconsistency might sound tolerable if it were limited to occasional inconveniences, but it can extend to crucial matters such as wound care, therapy sessions, or proper hygiene. I recall a neighbor of mine who needed help transferring from her wheelchair to the bed. One caretaker knew exactly how to assist her safely, but a newer aide almost dropped her because she wasn't properly trained. If the thought of inconsistent care or staff shortages strikes a chord, comment 3. Recognizing this reality is key to protecting yourself or a loved one. The consequence of failing to address it can be avoidable accidents, chronic stress, or even potentially life-threatening errors. And that stress doesn't just fall on you, it impacts family members who worry about what might happen when they're not around to advocate on your behalf. My warning is that you must do more than just rely on the glossy sales pitch of any nursing home. Dig deeper. Ask the facility about staff-to-resident ratios, turnover rates, and how they handle training. Request references from current residents' families if possible. Drop by at odd hours to see what the place is like when they're not expecting visitors. As older Americans often say, don't buy a pig in a poke, meaning don't make a purchase without thorough inspection. The same principle applies here. If you find that the facility has a high turnover rate or vague protocols, it might be worth looking elsewhere. Your well-being deserves consistency, not a daily gamble on whether you'll get adequate care. 4. A distant world outside those walls. I used to love spontaneous trips to the local diner for a slice of pie, or spending a lazy afternoon in my backyard watching birds flutter around the bird bath. Those were the tiny, unplanned pleasures that made life feel full. Once I moved into the nursing home, spontaneity became a luxury I no longer had. Most outings, if they happened at all, were structured by the facility's schedule. Maybe a weekly van trip to Walmart, a monthly visit to the local museum, or holiday light tour. These excursions were short, often crowded, and heavily supervised. The days of hopping into my car to pick up fresh apples at the orchard were gone. Over time, the outside world began to feel almost foreign. Friends who weren't in nursing homes were busy living their own lives. It became harder to coordinate a simple lunch date. I'd call them, we'd chat, but aligning their schedules with the facility's availability felt like a puzzle with half its pieces missing. Gradually, I slipped into a quieter routine, rarely leaving the premises, and an unsettling sense of disconnection set in. People assume that once you're in a nursing home, you don't want or need the same variety of experiences you used to, but I believe our desire to see new sights, taste new foods, or simply wander around a mall, window shopping, doesn't vanish with age. It's part of what keeps us curious and engaged with life. If you've ever worried about feeling cut off from the broader world, please comment 4. Identifying this fear might remind you to fight for the chance to remain engaged. The consequence of not addressing it is profound. Isolation can stifle your mental acuity and emotional wellness. Without fresh experiences, days blur together. You wake up, eat, watch TV, maybe play a bit of bingo, eat again, and go to sleep, only to repeat it the next day. This monotony can be suffocating. My warning is to look for a nursing home that truly promotes and facilitates regular, meaningful outings. Don't just settle for a bullet point on a brochure that says group activities. Ask, what activities? How often? How many staff members accompany residents? Ensure there's a system in place that respects each individual's ability level and interests. If you can't drive anymore, see if family members or volunteers can take you out. Explore ride services tailored to seniors. Fight for your right to stay involved with life outside the facility. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all, wrote Helen Keller. And even if we're well into our golden years, we deserve a few more mini adventures before the final curtain falls. 5. Being treated like a helpless child. When my daughter used to visit me at home, she'd casually ask, "Need me to grab anything from the store, Mom?" We had an adult-to-adult relationship. Sure, I was older, but there was mutual respect. In the nursing home, though, a strange dynamic emerged. Caregivers often used a tone of voice that made me feel like I was 5 years old. They'd pat my hand, smile condescendingly, and say, "Well, aren't you just so cute today?" Or they'd speak slowly as if I couldn't process normal conversation. I'm certain most of them meant no harm, but there's a wide gap between kindness and condescension. It's one thing to help someone with tasks they genuinely can't do, like lifting heavy objects or administering medical treatments. It's another to assume they're incapable of making their own choices or holding adult opinions. This constant belittling might start as an annoyance, but over time, it chips away at your dignity. You begin to wonder if maybe you are as fragile and clueless as they treat you. It's a vicious cycle. The more you're spoken down to, the less you speak up. After a while, I saw some residents hardly utter a word about their preferences. They'd nod politely, let the nurses choose their outfits, and accept whatever was served on their plate, even if it was something they disliked. That's what happens when you're continually made to feel that your opinions don't matter, or worse yet, that you're too old or senile to have valid thoughts. If you've ever cringed at the idea of being babied in your later years, comment 5. It's essential to voice these feelings openly. The consequence of tolerating condescension is a loss of identity. You might start to question, am I still the same person who raised a family, held a job, navigated life's ups and downs? My warning is to demand respect, even if it feels awkward. Speak up. Please don't talk to me like that. I understand you're trying to be helpful, but I'm an adult. If you have a family member or advocate, ask them to address this issue with the administration. Facilities should train their staff to treat residents as individuals with a lifetime of experience, not as children who need coddling. Remember, aging does not equate to losing your right to be heard, respected, and taken seriously. One of my neighbors, Mary, told her caregiver one day, "Sweetheart, I was a school principal for 30 years. I spent my career guiding young minds, and I'd love to have an adult conversation." That moment changed how the caregiver interacted with her. Sometimes people don't even realize they're talking down to you. Make them aware. It can be uncomfortable, but it's crucial for maintaining your sense of worth. 6. The weight of what if. Regrets. Late at night, when the lights are dim and the nursing home hallways are quiet, my mind often drifts to memories. The day I first held my daughter in my arms, the joy of family cookouts in my backyard, the smell of pine on our annual Christmas tree. Then, without warning, I'm pulled into questions that swirl around regret. What if I'd stayed at home a bit longer? What if I'd asked my son to move in with me? What if I'd tried a home healthcare service instead? These thoughts keep me awake more than any ache or pain. Regret is powerful, especially when you feel you have fewer opportunities left to correct the course. It's not that nursing homes are universally terrible. Many do their best. But the transition often feels so final. You've given up your familiar surroundings, many of your personal items, and the intangible comforts that define home. Once that decision is made, reversing it can be logistically complicated. Selling your house is easy compared to buying a new one when you're in your late 70s or 80s. Reassembling your old life sometimes feels like an impossible jigsaw. If you've ever lain awake at night haunted by your own what-ifs, please comment 6. The consequence of not addressing this concern is emotional turmoil. Living day after day with regret wears you down. You might isolate yourself further, hesitate to engage with others, or even direct blame unfairly toward family members who talked you into the move. It can become a barrier to finding any semblance of peace or happiness in your current setting. My warning is to approach any decision about nursing home placement with the utmost caution and honesty. If you suspect that you or your parent might resent this step later, look into transitional options first. Consider respite care for a few weeks to test the waters. Talk to multiple professionals, doctors, social workers, and financial planners, not just the facility's marketing team. If, after all this, a nursing home still seems like the right path, go in with realistic expectations and a plan for staying connected to the life you had. Regret might still knock on your door, but at least you'll have minimized the likelihood of being blindsided by it. I know this was heavy. My intention isn't to sow fear, but to give voice to the painful truths I've encountered and to let you know that you're not alone in grappling with them. Nursing homes aren't automatically the wrong choice. Some folks find genuine relief there. Medical care on standby, built-in social activities, and a break from the physical demands of housekeeping. But as with any major life decision, the key is going in with clarity. Don't expect perfection, and don't underestimate the emotional impact of leaving behind a life you've spent decades building. Ultimately, the lesson I hope you'll take away is this: our later years don't have to be defined by isolation or regret. We still have choices, even if they aren't as straightforward as they once were. We can speak up about our daily preferences, work with family to maintain meaningful visits, stay curious about the world beyond those facility walls, demand respectful treatment, and plan our finances to guard against unwelcome surprises. It's never too late to be what you might have been, an old saying reminds us. Maybe you'll discover a new hobby, reconnect with an old friend, or find peace in sharing your life stories with the younger generation. What matters is that you don't let any environment, be it a nursing home or your own house, rob you of your identity, your passions, or your hope. So, think critically before making the move. Talk openly with your loved ones. If you're a family member, honor your parents' voice in the decision process. If you decide to embrace the nursing home route, walk in with your eyes wide open, determined to hold on to your autonomy, dignity, and zest for life. And if you're already in a nursing home and feeling these regrets, know that it's not over. You still have time to speak up, to advocate for changes, or to find small joys in daily life. The chapter you're in might feel like the final pages of your book, but in truth, you're the one holding the pen. Write those pages with courage, intention, and a heart that remains open to whatever blessings may come your way. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Please remember to comment with the numbers that struck a chord. Like, subscribe, and share this with anyone who might need a gentle reminder that they're not facing these questions alone. We may be older, but we're still here, still learning, still capable of forging connections. May the road ahead be filled with choices that honor your wisdom and dignity.